As anime continues to rise in popularity in 2024, I started to think of why we are all so amazed by it. I think anime has many great lessons and opportunities provided into it that allows everyone to relate to it in a way that wasn't felt possible. We have so many characters with dynamic characteristics and fantastic development that we sometimes end up following this character and making it a part of our personality. I know many characters and traits that I have easily incorporated into my life, and more characters will be made and showcase a new example of personification. When it comes to anime characters being relatable, that can be subjective to each person. We all have characters who we specifically relate to that maybe other characters can't, and that's what makes this so great, is that we're all unique in our own ways, and there's a character out there who can relate to you the most. Characters that can speak to you through their actions, emotions, and friendships is so important for connecting. There are so many characters who are also inspiring, creating motivation in someone, and allowing them to work harder and be better. One character who I specifically want to bring up is Subaru from ReZero. Now, Subaru is quite a complex character. While Subaru does not tend to read the situations he encounters, ultimately leading him to make irrational decisions, he is loyal to those he holds dear, willing to help them, even if that means taking the thorny path. He had his resolve confirmed through the many situations and circumstances he faces in the fantasy world, originally having been one to always take the easy route. As a shut-in NEET, he was hopeful to the possibilities that being sucked into a new realm brings, but later realizes the realities of the predicament he is in. Eventually, he resolves himself to be faithful and protective of the ones that he cares most about. Beneath his eccentric demeanor, however, Subaru is actually a very insecure person, suffering from a severe inferiority complex due to growing up in his father's shadow. This also caused him to develop a fundamental misunderstanding of relationships where he believed he would be abandoned if he wasn't the center of attention. He would use these profound methods to just be able to stand out. Ironically though, these desperate attempts to connect to others only caused him to make a fool of himself and push others away. It wasn't until he was transported to Lagunica that Subaru finally met people who accept him for who he is, and he began learning how to build genuine relations. From a young childhood age, Subaru idolized his dad in particular, a popular man in his community who was highly talented in whatever he did. A loving father who prioritized his family above everything else, and had a boisterous personality that charmed anyone he met. KiiNGKhyy was everything he wanted to be, and growing up around him had a huge influence on Subaru's life. Taking pride in being his son, Subaru worked out to live up to the expectations that came with that in his mind. For a time, he achieved this, as Subaru found himself smarter, more physically able, and popular than his peers. When he received praise, Subaru would hear how it was expected of him being KiiNGKhyy's son, which made him feel special and entitled to a sense of superiority. However, as the young boy's small world started to gradually expand upon entering middle school, Subaru would come face to face with limits of his own ability. Suddenly, he found people who were becoming smarter and faster than he was, and in general being better at the things he used to be. He felt as if he was slowly losing his place and began to harbor a deep sense of shame at letting down his parents, and fear of everyone leaving him for failures, doubt, and self-loathing began to develop in his heart. But rather than prioritizing getting better at those things to combat his anxieties, Subaru instead placed more importance on doing daring and outrageous things to maintain his fragile dignity and keep himself as the center of attention. However, the more reckless Subaru's actions became, the fewer people wanted to be around him. Yet Subaru continued to deceive himself and believe his own lies because as the son of his seemingly indomitable father, he couldn't be seen as a failure. Eventually one day, Subaru noticed he no longer had any friends, and in his loneliness, Subaru realized he wasn't anyone special. From then on, the comparisons between his father and himself turned into a curse that wounded and suffocated him everywhere he went. Yet his strong admiration for his dad made it impossible to show that pain to anyone. Eventually, he stopped trying to stand out, and when high school came, he found himself in a new environment where no one knew his past. Seizing this opportunity, Subaru tried to build new interpersonal relationships, but he had no idea how to be himself around others, and instead only ended up emulating his father, his only frame of reference, which instead led to others to treat him as a clown, and classmates simply ignored his existence altogether. One day, Subaru skipped a day of school out of a lack of enthusiasm, which slowly turned into a constant thing until at one point, he hadn't been in class for 3 months. When out of public spaces, Subaru felt liberated, but more than that, his own degradation meant people would start distancing him from KiiNGKhyy, and in a twisted sense of hope, his parents come to acknowledge him as worthless and cast him aside in self-abandonment. After being summoned to a new world, he saw this as a chance to make a fresh start. However, he didn't change as a person. He decided that he would save Amelia, and eventually he was exposed for what he was, a person forcing their feelings on someone else, and that his white knighting doesn't work out in the real world. He thought of himself as the hero of his own story, but was faced with reality when he didn't have the overpowered abilities of a usual protagonist. He, however, chose to ignore that he wasn't the hero and that the world would go on with or without, and tried to force his way into Amelia's affairs, and in the process, making a complete fool of himself. The world then proceeded to show him how weak he truly was. and that he couldn't save anyone. After being utterly broken, he wanted to run away, but was however stopped by Rem. This became the turning point for his character. He truly made an effort to change himself rather than expect that as a supposed protagonist, and everything would work out, which it didn't before, as he had to watch the results of his failures and see the people he cared for die over and over again. Eventually, after hitting his breaking point and coming to terms with his inner conflicts with some encouraging words from Rem, Subaru began to reflect on his actions and take steps to amend his broken relationships, ultimately learn to be better considerate of Amelia's feelings rather than just forcing his in expectation that she would reward him. Subaru indeed became a changed character, and he also now tries to live up to the expectations of a hero that Rem had for him. Shout out to the fandom wiki for this information. Subaru is a character trying to be accepted and showing he can have skills as well. I feel like in the series he loves how cool his ability is to go back in time, but he starts to slowly realize the mental toll it takes on you. One of the craziest, if not the craziest deaths in ReZero was the rabbit episode. If you know, then you know. After that death, Subaru had started to go insane and realized just how bad death really is. Even if you can't come back to life, you still experience the pain and sorrow that comes from reaching death, and Subaru knew that pain many times. Subaru is very relatable because of his inferiority complex. He puts himself down all the time and is slowly accepting himself more with his strengths. Everyone in the world has different characters that appeal to them and they can relate to. For me, I tend to relate to characters who reach a point of redemption in their life after going through so much darkness. Some characters to name are Sasuke, Zuko, Lelouch, and Kaneki. These characters are great for me, and I've learned a lot of lessons that comes from these characters and just who they are and how they deal with the world around them. Anime characters can be great to know, and if you can take something from them and apply it to your life, that's a great thing to have. It's what makes anime so relatable. Being able to see a character go through something and the way they overcome it is so well that you can relate to that situation and apply it to yourself. Many characters also have their flaws and weaknesses that you might not want to follow, and that's okay, but we all have weaknesses and we can learn from it all. I love animes that give off a certain theme or message to their viewers without overly expressing it. Just being able to find that purpose on your own and see what the story was meant to be with the writing and the way the characters are set up. You just end up falling in love with the story and its theme and want to know everything about it. We have seen the massive surge in animes like Jujutsu Kaisen, and for good reason. This anime has showcased it as more than just a battle trope and goes into detail on humans themselves and the way they deal with things in their world. We also get to know a lot about love and weakness through the likes of Sukuna and Gojo. There's so much in anime that life has in store, and I hope you all find the characters that matches your personality. Well, I thank you guys for watching the video. Please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll be back in the next one. Peace.